all know that this has nothing to do with today's lesson, of course, because my brain goes all over the place, but it's Purim, or Purim was yesterday, okay? And the story of Purim is, you guys are familiar with the story of Purim? It's the story of Esther, and the evil second in charge of the kingdom of Persia had it as his plan, and written rule that had gone out through the entire empire, Persian Empire, to on that day to completely annihilate all the Jews. And that his territory not only included Persia, but his territory included everything west down to Egypt, which included Palestine. Okay, so he had governors in every area, and he was ready to wipe them all out. And that's when Esther intervened, and Haman gets hung on his own gallows. I just thought the story was remarkable is happening at the same time, because Persia is Iran, so it's just, you almost want to laugh. You don't want to laugh because it's terrible, but the story alignment, just like God, and I just love how God protects. And I think that's wonderful. So anyway, I figured you probably already knew all that, but I just thought it just hit me, so So we are in Leviticus chapter 10. I was supposed to finish that last week, and of course you know me, I never get everything done when I'm supposed to. And so we are at the priests have been anointed, and they have been functioning on their first day, which is in the layout, day 8, because it took 7 days to consecrate them. On day 8, they get to offer their own sacrifices for the first time. So this is their first day of function, and they've been doing it all day long. Aaron's been working all day long. They've got all kinds of sacrifices going on. All 4 of his sons have been working all day long, but primarily the 2 oldest. And does anybody know what's going to happen next? No? Chapter 10? All right. You kind of do know what's going to happen? All right. Same day. Okay? The 2 oldest sons are Nadab and Abihu. And to my knowledge, nobody else in the history of the Jewish people have named their kids Nadab and Abihu after this story. There's a few stories like that. So it's the end of the day, and you got to know what they have already gone through. These two sons are adults. They're not like teens. They're adults. They're not married yet, but they're adults. And they have been with their dad through this whole journey. They've been with Moses and Aaron through this whole journey. So that means that they were there when God spoke from the mountain and said the 10 Commandments to the point where the people are shaking like crazy, like you can't have God talk to us ever again. God, we can't do that. We have to let him talk to Moses. We can't handle this. This is just way too much. I think if we actually heard God speak, we might say the same thing. So they were there then. They were there when they got to go up on the mountain with Moses and the 70 elders and meet with God and have a meal with him. How that all played out, I have no clue. How they survived, how people survived, how they all didn't die meeting with God. I don't know, but they did that somehow. They got to do that. They have been sanctified for 7 days. They have gone through these rituals over and over and over again. And every piece of the ritual is precise. And Moses does it precisely. You gotta do this, and then you touch this, and then you sprinkle this, and then, right? It's been very, very precise. Like the impression that would come to my head is, better follow the rules exactly. That's pretty much the impression that would come to my head. They saw their dad build a golden calf. They saw 3,000 men die that day. They saw, they've heard Moses telling the people over all these little details. You're going to do this, you're going to do this. When you do this, you're going to bring a calf. When you do this, you're going to bring a goat. When you know, so he's heard all the instructions over and over and over again. And then this happens. Okay, so you can open your Bibles to Leviticus chapter 10. So you must have had a change of plans.
No, we just got home early.
Huh?
Yes, there's a lot of people.
Just go through. Okay, so there's certain rules. I don't know if you've noticed that when we went through all these rules, there's all these, as a matter of fact, as you're reading through, you go, do this thing and then do the rules are really almost tedious to us going through all the rules.
But not to them?
Not to them. Well, to them it's very important. It's very important, and partially because of the culture they're coming out of has very specific rules, and they're all completely opposite of these specific rules. And God wants to make sure that these people, his new nation, does not worship like that. And we already know they have the tendency to do that because of the golden calf. And the way the golden calf was worshipped and all that. So, it's just almost shocking to me what happens next. So, Nadab and Abihu get their censers, which are, I've seen them like these dangling things that swing that have fire in them that spray incense. I've also seen people think that it's like a frying pan type thing, that you put coals in and then you put the incense on top of it and it all floats up like that. Okay? I don't know exactly what the censer looks like. I just don't know. I just know they went and got some, which means there's more than one somewhere. And I had the impression that there was one when I was reading it, that one for the high priest to go in there and do it, and evidently there's more than one because they each have one. And it says they got their own censers. Okay, so they get their own censers, they put some coals on it, they dump some incense on it, and they go into the tabernacle. And instantly, fire comes out and kills them. Okay, that's rather shocking to the dad, I would think, and maybe to the brothers. And so they are, and the whole congregation, they come out and they're instantly dead. So the question is, what was so wrong with what they did, right? That's the question, is what was so wrong with what they did. So they did a whole lot of things wrong. There's a whole list. First of all, it was already designated that one person goes in at a time, never two. Okay, so there's that right there. Secondly, it's the high priest that goes in, not the priest. Not with the incense, it's the high priest. Okay, the third thing is that they have to go in at the precise time. I'm thinking this was not the precise time. So it's either not the late evening one and not the morning one, it's somewhere else. They're in there at the wrong time. It says they have strange fire, which means they probably got their coals from someplace other than the altar. All right? They may not have had the right incense. They're breaking all the rules, and they may have not gone in there. So why did they go in there at all? They want to be real cool? They want to be as good as their dad? Is it arrogance? Is it curiosity? Is it just not paying attention or not caring, whatever it is, it was severe and they died. Corpses defile the tabernacle. This whole thing is now defiled. This is a huge, huge thing. And Aaron is standing there. Can you imagine? First of all, it was this picture being exhausted from the day. And now he's dealing with this. All right, so your first reaction, if you are of a Hebrew at that time, is to crumple your hair and to tear your clothes and to put ashes on your head. Okay, that pictures your inside mourning. To tear your clothes, for us, if we tore our clothes, we go, okay, I go on Amazon, I spend $30 and I buy a new shirt. For them to tear their clothes, the average person had two outfits. One they wore and one they were washing. And that's it. To tear your clothes was to tear a huge, valuable thing. Clothes were very, very valuable back then. It's not like what we have now. You know, I go into my closet and I look at it and I think, which one? You know, theirs was, okay, that one's dirty, that one's clean. I'm wearing that one. That's it. So to tear that is a huge thing. And but they were told you're not allowed to tear your clothes. You're not allowed to crumple your hair. Crumpling your hair was like matting it all up, and it was a sign of mourning and anguish. And to put the ashes on you is just like, it's like imaging that you're dying because your beloved one has died. And Moses tells Aaron, you're not allowed to crumple your hair, you're not allowed to tear your clothes, you're not allowed to mourn. And he goes, you are still consecrated with oil. You've got to continue. And your sons have to continue. But we got to get, and what's another interesting thing is when they are burned up, their clothes are not burned up. Their clothes are still there. When the bodies get hauled out, the bodies are dead and awful. The clothes from being burned, the clothes are still, I don't think they saved the clothes, I don't know, but their clothes were not burned. Because they took them out with their tunics. You would think that'd be the first thing to go. It's very interesting. So Moses calls for a couple cousins, cousins of these guys, and they have to go in there and get the bodies out. I don't know how they went in there, but it was presented to me many years ago that they went in there backwards with their eyes closed. Because to turn around and go in there forward would be like, these people just died for doing this, I'm not going to do this. So I don't know that happened, and I didn't find that in here anywhere, but that was what I heard from somebody who had the culture of it down, that they went in there backwards and they got the bodies out and they take them outside the whole camp, somewhere way out here. And I do not know if they leave them, if they bury them, or what. I don't know what happened there. So the rejoicing of the day has kind of went down. And Aaron needs an answer. And the answer is in verse 3. Then Moses said to Aaron, this is what the Lord spoke, saying, by those who come near me, I will be treated as holy. And before all the people, I will be honored. So, all of a sudden, it becomes really, really clear to those people, if they haven't been already, that God's holiness is way up there somewhere, and we are way down here somewhere. And He lives in our presence. And we are supposed to interact with Him and worship Him. So how is that going to work? And it's very, very clear now. Up until now, it's like, oh yeah, we heard this is how you do it this way, bring this, da da da, bring this on. But now it's real. And to a large extent in American culture right now, or even in American Christianity right now, it's like, oh, he's just the nice guy upstairs. Right? I'm going to talk to the man upstairs. No, there's nothing wrong with that, but that's so casual. You know, it's not like, and that whole phrase, the fear of the wisdom is fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. Well, it's almost like you can't say the fear of God anymore because, oh, that's not sounding good. That's sounding, you know, he just loves us, and we forget that yes, his love is beyond description, but he's still holy. So how do you keep this intention, which is what all these weird chapters called 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 are all about. So when we get into that, I'm not quite there yet, but as we go in there, you go, oh, there's blood here, and there's this here, and you can't eat this, and you can't do that, and da-da-da-da-da, and you go, ah, and it's looking like, it is hard to read, and nobody wants to go through it, and it's yucky, and you go, I've had enough blood for today, and you go, yeah, okay, it's this definition. Worship requires holiness, and God is going to set up a system for them to learn what this means, and that's what this is about. So I had a lot of fun. By the way, I should tell you that as I studied Leviticus, I did not study the chapters in order. I know that's not good, but I did. I put off this section till the last. And I thought, okay, I want to get through the sacrifices. I really like the priest thing. I like what comes next in chapter 16 and 17. I wasn't real sure about 18 and 19, but then I jumped to 23. I liked that one, and I kind of did them in that order, and I did these last. And I said, okay, God, I got to go through these now. And so let me tell you, I know what you guys were all feeling as you read this. So, or if you read this, or when you do. So, and as I'm sitting there, and some of it hit me so much, I started shaking and crying. So there's more here. And God has a purpose for all his chapters, even if we don't find it right away, you know. So anyway, let's see, where am I at? Before we go on, oh, there is one other problem. There's a goat that got sacrificed on this day that was supposed to be eaten by the priests. This is this little detail, but Moses freaks out over it, okay? So if the blood of the sacrifice goes inside the tabernacle for like sprinkling, you know, when we did the stuff that sprinkled inside, okay, if it goes in there, then you cannot eat that animal. All right? The priests cannot eat that animal. But if it doesn't go in there, then the priests are supposed to eat that animal because it's holy and they're supposed to. So they had a goat that did not have its blood go in there, and Aaron and Eleazar and Abiathar, is that the last one? They didn't eat it. They burned the whole thing. So, there's another rule broken. And we think like, what's the Moses goes, what's going on here? What happened with the goat? Because we just had people die because they didn't follow the instructions correctly. So, and Aaron says to him, it's been a day. And I'm not allowed to mourn. I'm not allowed to go home. I would like to fast. And he says, okay. No, I see compassion in all of it. No? Anyway, that's just this little detail. That's at the end of chapter 10. So before we go on, I was thinking this was supposed to be the end of last week's lesson, by the way. So this is my nice, sweet conclusion, which you're getting at the beginning of this one. So, oh well. As they were preparing the priests for service, and I was thinking about it, I go, oh my goodness, God, look at this. Aaron was chosen. He did not volunteer. Oh, let me be that. I want to be the high priest. He was chosen. So we have been also chosen. If you've read the first chapter of Ephesians, it comes out right away, right in verse 4, that we are chosen. Okay, well, that's not all. Aaron was anointed, and we have been anointed with the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit is often compared to the oil. So we have been anointed. That's in 2 Corinthians 1:21 and 1 John 2:20 and 27. That's, not only are we anointed, we're sealed. Do you guys know what the sealing is like? The sealing is a picture, I might have told you this before. The sealing is a picture of a scroll that is going to become permanently established as a legal document. And to do that back there, they did not sign their names. So there wasn't a signature, so to speak. So they did not do that. What they did is they poured a little pile of wax on, they folded it so that the fold was like that, and right where it was joined, they put a little pile of wax, and then the king, the emperor, the whoever was the top-notch guy, would take his finger with his great big ring with his design in it, and he'd put it in the wax. That makes it legal. That makes it permanently legal. That's what's described that Holy Spirit did on us. He's described being sealed with the Holy Spirit means you permanently belong to Him. I mean, it's just the coolest thing. It goes right along with the anointing. Okay, so that's not all. He's made us holy and He has sanctified us, which is the process that was what Aaron was going through. What I'm trying to show you is that God is looking at each of you as His chosen high priest. Not the high priest, but the priest. That's a very, very, very high-ranking position in Jewish culture. So if we were using that as a type for us, that'd be a very high-ranking position for us. That He would consider us a priest. And I look at me and I go, are you sure? Okay, this one, he actually calls us priests in 1 Peter. This one is crazy. He has given us access to the Holy of Holies. This place here, when they really built that, is a copy of a real one. And the real one is a real one. And it's in heaven. And there's a copy of that. And God's throne room, I don't know. I haven't been there yet, so I can't tell you what it looks like. But He's described as sitting on this throne. And He's light, and He's like, okay, like it's a hard thing for me. How do I describe it? I can't describe it very well, but Aaron's only allowed to go in there one day a year, and no one else is allowed to go in there. One high priest, one day a year. And God said, I want you to have access to come to me any time you want. That's pretty big. Later on, as we get into Leviticus a little bit further, there's a little bit of inclination that what Nadab and Abihu might have done was to sneak into that Holy of Holies. It doesn't say it directly, but it has some little clues that that might be what they did. And a lot of commentators think that. That's what they did. And they died. And yet God has said, you guys come any time you want. when the people were first reading the book of Hebrews, they would have said, what are you talking about? When they said, in Hebrews 4:16 says, come before me. How's that go? I know that one and I lost it. Therefore, let us draw near with confidence to the throne of grace. Throne of grace is Greek for mercy seat. Okay? Mercy seat is that place. It's also called the cover of atonement. So that's, all those things are synonymous terms. So therefore, let us draw near with confidence. Oh, confidence? I don't think Aaron has confidence right now to go in there. Can you imagine later on that same day, after his sons died, he has to go in there and trim those lamps? He has to go in there with incense and put it on the incense altar. Do you think he's shaking? Would I want to go in there after that? My 2 oldest children just died. And yet he says to us, you come. In Hebrews it's 10 something or other, and it says that the veil that keeps you out is an exact type of Jesus' body. And when his body was quote, quote, torn, the veil was torn, and we can walk in. The position he has put us in is phenomenal. It's almost scary. But you go in with confidence. And I want to pray with more respect and more awe, and not just like, God, I need this right now. I mean, you can do that, and he'll listen because he said, go there with confidence before the throne of mercy, and you will receive grace to help in time of need. Okay, you can do that, but isn't there something really cool about figuring out where you're at and walking in there and going, whoa, I have the honor to enter the Holy of Holies, and God stops the world to listen to me. Pretty good. Okay, so not only that, we can come at any time, and our prayers are called the incense before the throne. That's in Revelation. Our prayers are actually the incense, and he loves the smell of the sweet smelling incense. It's a pretty cool position he's got us in. Okay, so let's go to chapter 11. Okay, and I better describe to you this phrase right here. You guys ever see that? Notice that? There's clean and there's unclean. There's things like this. Okay, the first thing, it's not about hygiene. It's not about, oh man, I didn't have time for the shower this morning. I'm unclean, I cannot go in. It's not about hygiene. It's not about that at all. It doesn't matter whether or not they put on their deodorant or not. That's not what it is. Okay? It's not, and when they get to the foods, these are clean and these are unclean. It's not about nutrition. So it's not like when you eat kosher, according to the old-fashioned Jewish rules, they are having higher nutritional foods. Now they may have higher nutritional foods, but that's not the original plan. It's not about nutrition. And here's the big one though. These two are not necessarily about sin. There's a whole lot of unclean things in the story that are not sinful. Your first comment is, oh, that can't be, it has to be sinful. It's not about it's not about that. So I'm going to give you an example. It comes from Numbers, and it has to do with the red heifer sacrifice. There's some other sacrifices that are not listed in Leviticus. Leviticus isn't like the final book on it. There's more information that comes in Numbers. There's more information that comes in Deuteronomy. But we're just doing Leviticus at the moment. But I am going to jump up to the red heifer sacrifice. Turns out that, and we will find out that if you're in your field and one of your animals dies, you got a sheep that died, and he's in your field. You can't just leave the sheep. You got to deal with the sheep. The owner of the field's got to deal with the sheep. If he leaves the sheep there, he's got all kinds of danger from predator animals that are going to go in and take over all the other animals. So he's got to deal with the sheep. When he goes and touches the dead sheep, he becomes unclean. Okay? It's not sinful to deal with the sheep. You got to deal with the sheep. But he becomes unclean. And there's this process where he has to go to the priest with a red heifer, and it's a specific kind of dead animal, and I'm not remembering the details at the moment. And the priest, he can't go inside the tabernacle. He's unclean because he touched a dead animal. All right? He's got to deal with this. So the priest comes out and to a quote clean place outside somewhere, and he offers the red heifer, and the priest goes through all the steps exactly as God said, and the priest becomes unclean. Okay, so what's the solution? The solution to that unclean is you stay out of the tabernacle area until evening, which is, let me just say 6 o'clock, and you wash your clothes and bathe. And now you're clean and you can go back in. There's a reason for all that, and you go, we don't think in Eastern culture, Middle Eastern culture, so we think in American culture, so we go, what is going on? But anyway, I'm just using that as an illustration. If the priest obeyed the rules exactly, he didn't sin, and yet he's unclean. So that's really, really important, that this is not necessarily sin. Okay? Got that?
Yeah.
All right. It's going to be important when you give birth and you're unclean, or when you're on your period and you're unclean, and everything you touch is unclean. Okay, what did I do? You didn't sin at all. It's just this thing that's going to be used as a typology. That looks like a G. Okay? It's going to be a type. So that's what this is about. So as you read through these and you go, this is clean, this is, some of the unclean is sin, because that can be done, but a lot of it is not. So later on, if you are in this situation and you have not sinned, you've got to come in and you are going to offer one of the 5 offerings that we've had so far. You're not going to offer a whole burnt offering. You're not going to offer the grain offering. You're not going to offer the thankful offering. And the guilt offering you're not going to offer. You know which one you're going to offer? You're going to offer the sin offering. Because it's not only just a sin offering, it's also a purification offering. And several Bibles may even call it that as their titles in the section. So I happen to have an NASB, it's a New American Standard, and its advantage is that it translates exactly word for word, or as close as to it can. But it doesn't necessarily translate the thought process exactly as you can. So if you go to another version, you'll get one that translates the idea, the intent, exactly as they think that is intended. And so you might, in one of those, get a purification offering. Okay, so here's another example. When Mary had Jesus, there was no sin involved. None whatsoever, at all, in any way. She didn't get pregnant by any kind of sin. She didn't live through it by any kind of sin. And giving birth was not any kind of sin. And she had to wait her days to give her purification. She had to go through her purification process. And when she went to the temple, she had to give one of these. Okay? It's proof that that's not, it's always a sin. Just letting you know that. If you know that up front, then when you read through this, you go. Okay? So there's a lot of things. There's going to be a thing where a guy gets diarrhea. That's not a sin. But he's unclean and he can't go into the tabernacle. Well, I'm telling you, if I was feeling like that and I was having a lot of trouble, I probably wouldn't even come to church either. Right? Because it's not real clean. That isn't actually the thing, but you get the point? So that's what's going on here. Now there's rules, we're going to get into that, but I wanted to set us up for what's coming so that as you read it, as you understand it, it helped me a whole lot to get the background of what was going on with these rules, so that I could understand a little bit more what was going on. Okay, so there is a big reason why chapters 11 through 15 follow chapter 10. Because if Nadab and Abihu could not enter because they did something that theirs was actually sinful, but anything unclean, then we need to know really quickly what. Otherwise, anybody who walks in there is going to. What if you walk in there and you're you're going to drop dead? What do you think? That's what Aaron would have thought next time he walked into the tabernacle. So there's all kinds of things going on here. So that's the setup for. I just thought it was just a precursor, so that because these are not the easy chapters of Leviticus. Just telling you. Alrighty, things you can eat and things you can't eat. The whole list of food. Animals you can, animals you can't. In here it tells you about touching a carcass. It has rodents you can and rodents you can't. Well, for me, I would just say rodents I can't. I'm just going to put it that way. It says no snakes. I say,
Oh, good.
oh, I'll suffer that one out, God, but okay. I mean, I've heard that snake is good to eat, but if I die without ever tasting it, I will be just fine with that. Yeah, so they can't eat snakes. They have all these rules of what you can eat and what you can't eat. They can't eat camels. They can't eat pigs. There's reason for this. There's probably the only thing on the whole list that I personally would miss would be seafood and shellfish. But other than that, that's, I could eat just fine, which one. The one thing is that they didn't even have, and that's sugar. How would we, how would I live without sugar? I don't know. I don't know how I would live without sugar. So as you go through this, you'll find out what to do when a clean animal dies, what to do. So these animals are defined as, these are the clean animals, these are the unclean animals. It has to do with how they divide their hoof and whether or not they chew their cud.
Arbitrary, it seems.
It seems arbitrary. And God has a reason for choosing his things. And everything he chose, all these rules, he chose as a typology or as a protection. So one of the things that this is protecting them from, if you cannot eat pork, and the Canaanites over there, which are trying to be very friendly and your neighbors, have this huge pork feast over there. And they have their culture, which is so degenerately bad in so many ways that it's going to tell us in Leviticus that is exactly why they're being thrown out of the country. That's exactly why God is removing them. Is because of the way their culture is. So the last thing God wants is for his people to join in meals with those people. Because you know what happens when you join in meals? You're going to become more like them. Right? Odds are they are not going to become like you. Odds are you are going to become like them. And that happens over and over, and God is going to tell his people, you are going to be their witness by being holy and different. You're not going to be their witness by joining into their culture. Okay? There's only one person I know of in the whole Bible who could join into their culture and actually purify those guys. And that was Jesus. He could touch a leper, and instead of the leper making him unclean, he made the leper clean. He could touch a lady who was having a menstrual problem that would not stop bleeding for 12 years. And instead of her making him unclean, he makes her clean. Here's the other side of the story. When sin gets started, I'm jumping ahead. That's another illustration. Anyway, there's one point in this story where sin starts tiny, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger because you get comfortable with it. Okay, so that's the story of David when he is standing on his balcony. And it says that it was the time when the kings go to war. And he didn't. That was his first sin. He sent his army out without their general. The king was the general. And that sin leads to, you know what happened next? To the Bathsheba sin. And that sin leads to, you know what happened next? To the murder sin. And that sin leads to denial. Because he had to have Nathan tell him in court what he had done. This is why God is protecting his people, okay? Get that? So that will help. All right, you guys take a break, and I will come back and bombard you with what's coming next. So here's something kind of neat. You've been ready for a little Hebrew. You guys ready for a little Hebrew 101 kindergarten Hebrew class? Okay. In Hebrew, most base words have 3 letters, which is really nice. 3 whole letters. And they are consonants. They did not originally write their language with vowels at all. So, that being said, it was hard to tell one word from another. You see that? So, because you see, they look identical. All right. This thing that kind of, by the way, it reads this way. Okay, so look at it and read it that way. This is a silly thing, and I've told several of you many times, but when I was first even opening a book that had some Hebrew in it, and I was trying to figure out the alphabet, and this is like me being 4 years old and seeing if I could learn how to do anything. It was all I could do to get my brain to read this one. So I started working on that first. And I'm driving along one day, and I come to the sign, and it says pots. And I just busted up laughing at myself. I was glad no one else was in the car, because no one would know that I would be like, what is so funny about a stop sign? No, that's a pot sign. So anyway, this thing that kind of looks like a P/R is a Q. And this thing that here is a D. And this is an SH. If the dot is on this side, it's an S. If the dot is on this side, it's an SH. Okay? So this is Kodesh. Kodesh, okay? This is Kodesh. If one is a verb, here, I almost did this. Okay, so no, I will do English now. And one is a noun. actually it's probably an adjective, but, so how, the only way you would know the one from the other is by context, right? By reading your thing. It's kind of like the word run. Run is a verb. A run is also a noun. I went for a run. That's a noun. I'm gonna run, that's a verb. You see the difference in this context, okay? So if you were Jewish, this would be really easy, but later on, this got hard for people, so they started adding vowels. So there's your vowels. That's a Kadesh. And this one is a Ka, and then they did this kind of little vowel, that's a Kadosh. Okay, so that's the difference, but basically it's the same word. As a verb, right here, this means to sanctify. This means holy. So what I thought was so cool is the process, even in Hebrew, of being sanctified produces holiness. I just thought it was, you gotta know that I got this really freaky brain that gets all turned on by stuff like this. And I get excited by sharing it, so there it is. That might mean nothing to any of you, but those words are all over here. And the verb to sanctify produces holiness. I thought that was pretty cool, so that's in here. Yeah. So now I know you all want to take a Hebrew 101 class, right? Right?
I would do it again.
You do it again?
I would do it again.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember only like 10% of what you taught us.
Well, I only taught you the alphabet a little tiny bit. Yeah, so anyway, decided to show you that, and that's what this is about. And the reason that there is clean and unclean is to produce this, okay? And these things are things they're going to do on the outside, and it's going to hopefully, like, they're going to go, oh, I get the picture. Put it in my head and do it like this, right? I mean, that's the whole point. Later on, we get to the New Testament, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, well, Pharisees more than Sadducees, are absolutely experts in this. But not in this. It was all on the outside. And finally, he goes, you know what? I don't even want sacrifices anymore. I want your heart. I'd rather you be kind. The Lord doesn't even want the Lord doesn't even want these processes anymore if we can't get to here. Okay, that's the point. That's why not every single detail, I might have communicated this wrong, in these chapters is a direct type. But on the whole, this is a type to get you from doing all these things to here. That's the point of all the stuff. But I just thought, I was so excited to show you that, so that's there it is. Sometimes there's unavoidable impurity, unclean, cannot get away from it. And that's like the dead carcasses on your land. That's like if you're a female and it's your time of the month. You can't, it's unavoidable. So those are, and men have things like that too. They have all kinds of things that are making them unclean, and you just have to know that in those situations, don't go into the tabernacle. That was the rule, if you're like that. So that was called ritual uncleanness. Now, you guys remember the story when the Pharisees come up to Jesus and they say, how is it that you eat this meal without washing your hands? We think, oh, we always wash our hands before we eat because our hands are dirty. And nothing to do with whether you had dirty hands or not. You didn't wash it with soap, you didn't clean off the dirt, you didn't do anything. You took your fingertips and you dipped them in the water. That is a ritual cleanness. Okay? Had nothing to do with being clean. They ate with filthy hands. They, you know, if your hands are filthy and you go like that, your hands are still filthy. So there was no soap involved, none of that. So that's what they're telling Jesus. How is it that you eat with unclean hands? So and all of a sudden, he's looking at him like, really? Yeah. Okay. All right, so, and by the way, I don't think that actually dipping your hands before you eat is ever in here. If it is, I haven't found it yet. Okay, so if you find it, come tell me. But I don't.
Does that mean they sort of created it themselves?
When
Imagine that it's what God would want them to do.
one of the things that they did is that here's Torah. Torah is in general, in specific, Genesis through Deuteronomy. Okay, it's the law. That word means law, by the way. That's the Torah. And if you want to call it an overall thing, you would do the whole Old Testament, would call it Torah. But specifically, that's Torah. When the Pharisees, between the Old Testament and the New Testament, as the Greeks are coming in and taking over, and there's all kinds of things going on, and the language is being changed and all that, they are worried that Torah is not going to be obeyed. So what they did was they made a bunch of rules that made a fence around Torah. Okay? Now, if you broke those rules, you were breaking Torah. So they're trying to protect Torah. But they make all these other rules too, like you cannot work on the Sabbath. Well, it does. I don't think it really says that you can't take more than 75 steps on the Sabbath or whatever that number is. I think that's part of the fence. And so that was how they. So many of the rules that were supposed to be obeyed in the New Testament, according to the Pharisees, are not this. They're this.
And it's funny because the law was created to show us that we couldn't be holy because it required. And so even so, man is trying so hard to make us have to be obedient to the law, and it's just, they're so wrong.
That's one of the things Paul actually wrote, that you absolutely could not ever be perfect by the law. It's in Romans 3. And he gets rejected by the Jews for saying such things. So it's, huh?
What do they call the fence? Is that a book?
That's probably the Talmud. The Mishnah. There's another one that starts with an M, and I'm not thinking of it right now.
So those are Jewish holy books, and they're full of laws.
They are books written by rabbis around, I think the Mishnah goes first. I think it was written between the Old Testament and the New Testament, and they've just come out of exile. They've gone through the Hasmonean Revolution type thing when they were trying to take over the area and take down the temple again and put up an idol instead of that. So they're trying to protect. So I think that their original motivation was pretty good. And it gets out of hand, like anything man does to make himself holy. And as we see with so many of the other religions around, that our man is trying to make himself holy, and you actually can't. And the whole point of Torah, the whole point of all this is to show you, you're not. Okay? You're, even breathing and being female, you're not holy because you can't go in there all the time because you're not. Yeah. So that's and the men aren't any better. Just saying that.
That was recorded.
Oh no! Okay, well, I'm on my face. So that's what's going on there. But then God set up these rules because he's trying to show how holy he is. And so here's some of the rules. You where am I at here? Let's go. We sort of covered chapter 11, all the foods. You eat the foods or you don't eat the foods. If you eat these foods that you're not supposed to eat, you are unholy, or you are unclean, and you've got to do a sacrifice. You've got to bridge that gap, and that gap is bridged through a sacrifice. If you do an unholy thing if an unholy thing happens to you that you can't avoid, like touching somebody, for instance, a lady is on her period, and you come up not knowing and touch her shoulder. You are now unclean. Okay?
So does she have to tell you? I mean, because there's no way you would know.
You know what? I would say that I would be terrified to walk into the tabernacle at any given time, anywhere, any day, whatsoever. If she sits on the bench, and it's perfectly fine, and I come sit on the bench, I'm unclean.
So in that instance though, didn't the women go out to a tent of?
They did a lot of things.
Mourning.
Well, if you want to go back before this time, that's what Rachel was doing in the tent when she was separated, because what she was actually doing was using that as an excuse to hide idols.
Right, she sat.
But, yes, but it must have been so common that her dad believed her.
My friend years ago said, can you imagine that tent probably got a chocolate fountain?
Yeah, so there were lots of
Gotta go
things
to the
like,
tent.
yeah, so there's all kinds of things like this, yes. So, all right, childbirth. Here's one of the main rules one of the main reasons why this stuff can happen. In the Canaanite culture, the main god is Baal. Baal is worshipped with blood. It's not animal blood, it's human blood. You guys remember Elijah on the mountain, and he's building the altar, and the prophets of Baal have built an altar, and there's like 400 of them, and he lets them, and they're supposed to call down fire from heaven, and he lets them dance and do their thing all day long, and one of the things they do is cut themselves to pieces so that their blood, their human blood, is being sacrificed all over this altar. Okay? And of course, you know the rest of the story. Elijah doesn't put human blood, he dumps water on his and builds a trench and makes it impossible for a fire to start, right? So, and of course, we know how that came out, but they worshiped with blood. Now, God is going to say, he's just making a picture, so get this. He goes, you are not to worship with human blood, period. So I'm not going to allow human blood in the tabernacle. Okay? Now, and I started to see that and going, okay, this makes a little bit more sense. You are not allowed to bring human blood into the tabernacle. You notice there's never human blood in the tabernacle? There was only one time when God accepted human blood.
Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Only one time. And that had to be from a perfect sacrifice. Human blood is not it. So now I understand, okay, if I'm on my period, I can't go in. Just because what God is trying to say is we are not bringing human blood into here. Over here, when a child was born, he was often sacrificed at birth. I mean, I've even seen an idol that was hollow and had a way, the head was hollow and the arms were like this, and they put the baby here and they filled the head with milk and let it run out through the breast so the baby could suck on the stone breast for the milk as the fire came up and burned. That was a Canaanite altar. Okay, so after seeing a few things like this, I am beginning to see why God said, no, you may not be with those people. You may not eat with those people. You may not worship like those people. You see how serious this is? Okay, so when he says, when he makes these rules, they are cut and divide so that you guys do not go like this. You're going to worship me this way. Not only that, is the only animal blood inside the tabernacle is sacrificed animal blood. Okay, you can't just bring, you cannot sacrifice an animal out in the fields. You cannot butcher an animal out in the fields because you're going to eat it. You cannot butcher the animal out in the fields and then bring that in as a sacrifice and offer some of the meat to God. That's not done properly. You see these, he cuts these rules cut and dry. So he is God is putting a box around worship so that those people, where are they coming from? They're coming from Egypt. The worship in Egypt was just as bad as the worship in Canaan. And they are moving into Canaan. How is he going? They've got 400 years of indoctrination into this. How are they going to change all that? So he puts this tight box around. That's what these chapters are about. How does that work? So as you get into the chapter 12 on childbirth, the first thing you got to know is children are a blessing from God, because it comes across like this is not good. Children are a blessing from God. God's word doesn't contradict itself. I found like half a dozen verses that directly say how much a blessing children are. So here's a question. If God tells Adam and Eve, be fruitful and multiply, are they supposed to have children? So having children is obeying God. So how can children not be a blessing? Right? So none of this is about anything sinful whatsoever. Okay? So when the woman has to wait for 33 days after having a male child to go in, it's probably to get all the blood solved and whatnot. Here's a question, and it's on my list. Girls, she waits for 66 days. Boys, she waits for 33 days. All right, God. And I have to tell you that out of all the 7 or 8 books I read, nobody figures it out. So this is one of those things that God, and he has the right to not tell me everything, although I argue with him about that. I don't know. A lot of the more newer commentators try to make it be the great blessing of the mom to be with her baby girl longer. And I don't know if they're accommodating for feminism or if they're really thinking that. You know, I don't know. I can't tell because the older ones don't say that. You know, like if I read one from the 1800s, it's not going to say that. You know, so I don't know. So you go in there and you go, I don't get it. Join the club. So I don't know why that
On
is.
the 8th day, the boys had to be circumcised.
On the 8th day, the boys had to be circumcised.
That would be part of it.
They have to be, quote, in their process of clean faster because they have to be circumcised.
Maybe that, I don't know if that.
That could be it. I have no idea. So read over that and put that on your list and say, okay, God, we want to know why. And maybe it is so that mom can treasure her daughter longer. Make boys go into the culture faster than the girls do, so that might be us. That sounds fine with me. I'm good with that. So so that is pretty much, she has to then go in and do afterwards, like I said before, one of these offerings. It's obviously not a sin offering. It's a purification offering from all the process of giving birth. The other thing that is a little bit of an issue, maybe, I don't know, is that they had a really, really high mortality rate, much compared to now, with the babies being born, of both the mother dying and the baby dying. So I don't know if that has anything to do with what's going on here, but that is a common thing, that there was a lot of babies that died early. Rachel died in childbirth. You know, the guy, let's see, what's his name? I almost got it. Anyway, there's another lady who, she died in childbirth, and David's baby died. You know, there's a lot of lot more mortality rate amongst babies at that time. So I don't even know if that comes into the meaning of it all. I'm just like, my brain is, it brings her home. But I want to talk to you about Tarsal. That's leprosy. So that would be in the next chapter. I think we're in chapter 13 right now. Okay, so before we dive into leprosy, I thought, I thought I'd tell you what leprosy is like. And the best I can do is that this one is, here, we don't need you to go up here anymore. Leprosy is a type for total depravity.
And then type again means
It means it is a picture of this.
representative.
Right. This is, so of all, okay, so this is the disease that's listed in Leviticus, right? There's tons of diseases that they have. You think they didn't have heart failure? You didn't think they had strokes? You didn't think they had upset stomachs? You don't think anybody ever got a cold? You think runny nose, fever, all this stuff? None of those are listed in Leviticus. There's other diseases that were common in that day that are way more fatal, way more contagious, way more awful, and yet God chose leprosy. So when he chooses as something to represent something, there's a specific reason for why he chose that one to represent this thing. So I'm going to show you, and the fact that this is my observation. So maybe I should make it this way, because it's my observation personally. All right? Okay. So let me tell you about the symptoms of leprosy. It takes 7 to 20 years to even identify that you've got it. So you're sick with this for 7 years before you know you have it, maybe up to 20. Okay? It is not hereditary, but it tends to run in families. So have you ever noticed that, like things that tend to run in families but aren't necessarily considered genetically running families? Okay, that's what this is. The first signs are very, very minute. Like the first sign, if you took a straight pin because you're sewing or a needle and you pricked your finger and you got a tiny speck of blood, that's the first sign. So how much could that happen back here and you not notice it? Or at the back of your neck and you not notice it, right? So it's not easily identifiable right away. It's very gradual. Some people it grows faster than others. Some people it grows very, very, very slowly. One of the things about leprosy is as it grows on you, it desensitizes you to pain. So you actually feel less pain than other things that when you get sick and you get more and more and more pain, you know? You get a bad knee, and it starts off, I happen to know this, starts off with just hurts a little bit here and there, once in a while, when you step on it crooked, and then pretty soon it hurts with every step, and then pretty soon you're not standing on it. Okay, that's not leprosy, it's the opposite. You feel less and less and less of it as it goes. It tends to eat at your whole body. And it grows deeper than the skin. And the priest can examine it, but he cannot cure it. So the priest does not have, there isn't a cure in here. There's the diagnose, and there's what to do afterwards, but there isn't the cure, which is very interesting. Okay? Sometimes it was given out as punishments. Uzziah, one of the kings of Judah, decided that you would think he should have read Leviticus because he was told as a king to read the Torah all the time. He decides that he wants to take incense into the holy place. I'm going, did you not read Leviticus chapter 10? Did you just not read it? And he doesn't die, but he does get leprosy. And so he's doing that. Miriam gets leprosy, and I kind of think it's because she got like annoyed that her little brother was in charge of things, and she started spreading some gossip. But ooh, gossip is not a good thing. Okay, Naaman had leprosy. Elisha's servant, his name is, just a minute, I got it. Well, anyway, he gets greedy. And when Naaman is healed, Naaman who has leprosy is healed, he offers Elisha all this gold. Gehazi. Gehazi is the one intermediate between the story. So Elisha turns down the gold. So Naaman starts to go home with this huge pile of gold. And Gehazi goes, after a little bit, he chases after Naaman and says, my master kind of changed his mind. And he takes the gold. Well, he also takes the leprosy. So he gets leprosy. So that's the story. So leprosy is sometimes used as a punishment. You don't die quickly from leprosy. You live a long life in misery from leprosy. Okay? The leper has to leave his hair a mess. And he has to tear his clothes. And he has to cover his face. It reminded me of COVID with the mask. And everywhere he goes, he has to yell out, unclean, unclean, unclean. So what picture, he is picturing walking mourning. You hear that? You see that? Walking, visiting, like his parents just died, his wife just died. He's in constant mourning because he has to live like that. He is not allowed to be around people. He has to live away. He can't be with his family. He can't be with his job. He can't be with his wife. He can't be with his children. He has to live in an isolated place. He can't go to worship. He can't do anything. He is completely isolated. Okay, so this is why I think this is a picture of total depravity. First of all, it takes us a long time before we even identify that we have it. It starts off small and grows within us. It's deeper than skin deep. It desensitizes us to the consequences of total depravity. You think, not a big deal. And yet you are a walking, living picture of death without dying. So after I started really thinking about it, I go, oh, I can see why God chose this particular disease. You are a walking picture of death without life. One little sin makes it really easy to do the next sin. And that little sin, like the story of David, makes it easier to do the next sin. Have you ever been caught in that trap? I've been caught in that trap. Done one little thing that really kind of just amounts to nothing. But maybe not, might be quite what God really wanted. If he was standing right there, I might not have done it. And then it's easier next time, and it's easier next time, and it's easier next time. It's what this picture looks like. Okay, so it goes on like that. You are in constant exile, and you don't get to die. So you will die eventually because you're human, but you're gonna live a long time in the process of dying without dying. So I really think it's a picture of eternity in hell. You are living, walking death. And even when you're surrounded, you're isolated. So when I started to see that, oh, this chapter has more to it than I thought. Okay, so now we get to the chapter. You have to be, this is chapter 13. You can read through that. The priest can identify. First of all, you don't go to a physician when you have leprosy back in these days. You went to the priest. Priest can't heal you. He doesn't have medicine. All he can do is identify that you have it and send you away. That's what the priest could do. So you get through the whole chapter, and it's this long chapter, and and then there's this section on leprous garments, which may not be the exact same leprosy, but something similar that has the same title. And I was thinking, if the leprosy on me is the sin within me, then the leprosy around me is is the poor choices of who I might be hanging out with. Okay? And I was thinking about the difficulty of our youth picking their friends and who they're hanging out with, and how that influences and how that spreads to us. So that's what I thought that picture might mean. You know what's really interesting? Chapter 14 is for what the priest is supposed to do when they're cleansed. You guys see what's missing here? How do you get cleansed? It's like I said, God, you're missing a chapter between 13 and 14. There is no cleansing here. So the leper thinks he's cleansed. And one of the things that it said, if it says that if all your skin and the color, all your skin is white, that to me, my first thought was you're covered with leprosy, but when it said the word meant fresh skin. So it's like all brand new, fresh skin. And it doesn't have, okay, so you notice all your skin is white. I've been cured. I'm well. I'm gonna go, so you can't go in to get the priest. You gotta get word in to get the priest somehow without getting close to anybody, because you're still a leper. And he comes out and he goes through these processes to determine whether or not you really are. And he'll do this test, and if you come back clean in a week, he'll do the test again, and and he goes through this process, and he determines, okay, you're clean. All right, now we're gonna do the sacrifice. This is so different. Okay, so here he gets 2 birds. And I'm reading this, I go, okay, God, this is all different than anything we've done so far here. So he's gonna take a pot, fill it with water, and he's going to kill a bird in the water. Drown it, kill it, cut its neck, whatever. So the water is now full of blood, right? He's going to take the hyssop and the scarlet, and that all means stuff, but I didn't go into all that. And he's going to take the other bird, and he's going to dip the other bird in the bloody water. And then he's going to send the other bird out flying. Okay. All right. So, this is actually the cure. I know, it's not the cure. It's the type of the cure, okay? To put a bird where birds don't really go in pots too well. I have not seen a bird like that too much. Is a picture of Jesus being put in a clay pot, meaning becoming human. There's a verse in 2 Corinthians chapter 4 when Paul describes us as being broken clay pots. Okay, so he's the clay pot. He comes and he dies as the clay, in the clay pot. Okay? But the other bird is also him, because you cannot picture Jesus with one type. You should notice that through this all the way through. So the other bird, dipped in the blood, rises out and flies away and is now resurrected. When that happens to us, our total depravity receives new life. That's the picture here. There's more. It's crazy. The priest then takes the blood and he does something that hasn't happened yet except for to the high priest. He puts it on the ear and the thumb and the toe of the leprous man. He just anointed him as a priest. He went from the worst to the highest position in one thing. And this is where I started shaking in my chair, because I thought, that's what God has done to us. He has anointed us like a priest. Who would, nobody else gets blood. I mean, there's so far, unless you find more, because I haven't like perfectly studied the Bible yet. If you find, I haven't found a sacrifice where the blood of the sacrifice goes on the person offering it, except for the priest. And this time, I thought, of all things, the leprous man gets anointed like the priest. And from here on in, he's welcomed back into the community.
So is that referencing that lepers in the Old Testament could be healed? Because isn't it normally you don't get healed?
Yeah, I mean, I only know of two stories where lepers in the Old Testament got healed. One was Miriam, and one was Naaman, because I don't think Gehazi got healed, and I don't think Uzziah got healed, and there's probably others. It has to be a miracle from God that literally heals them, but it's also a miracle from God that literally heals us in our spiritual lives. But it's a picture, it's a type of what's going on. And I just thought it was so precious that of all the different things that you had to do to get clean again, this one, which was the worst of these, puts you at the highest. So, as you go home today, we're not done, but as you go home today, remember your new position. You are a priest, anointed by the very blood of Jesus Christ. So, go find Hebrews chapter 10, and let's jump into the New Testament. We're looking at some Jewish Christians who are trying to figure out whether they're going to stay Jewish or going to stay Christian, or revert back to Judaism and stay Christian. And And they know all this really well. So now that you have their frame of reference, they know everything that we learned. They already knew. They had it since childhood. So let's look at verse 19. Therefore, brethren, since we have confidence to enter the holy place by the blood of Jesus, by a new and living way, which he inaugurated for us through the veil, that is his flesh. When you see that through the veil, that is his flesh. That's a direct type. That's Bible writing for a direct type. The veil was a total picture of Jesus' flesh. Okay? And since we have a great priest over the house of God, this is not talking about us as a priest. This is talking about Jesus as the high priest. Let us draw near. Oh, go in? With a sincere heart, in full assurance of faith. Look at that. Having our hearts sprinkled clean from an evil conscience and our bodies washed with pure water. That is the process that the unclean takes to become the clean. So you were unclean for whatever reason. You washed your clothes, you changed clothes, you washed your clothes, so you had a clean set of clothes on, you washed your body, you waited till evening. Evening is the beginning of the next day. They go from 6 p.m. to 6 p.m. is a day. And now you're clean. Let us draw near with a sincere heart in full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled clean from an evil conscience and having our bodies washed with pure water. So can you see what they're picturing? You see what they're thinking of? Let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering. For he who promised is faithful. So you would not want to throw away Christianity to go back to that when Jesus has already washed you clean. All right. I think that's it. Do you guys have any questions?
So it would seem that you'd be needing to make sacrifices, not only the priest, we know the priest twice, like never ends, but the women, so monthly, a woman is gonna have to offer a
Sacrifice?
purification, whatever.
Purification.
But like, how often do you think as a family they were needing to go and bring doves,
I think it would be up to the family. How often, I mean, if you're watching your own family, how often do you have a family-oriented sin? I don't know. How do you find it? How does the father in the family determine, okay, we have made a huge bad decision, we need to go make an offering? If you're really looking at just me, I'd be in there constantly.
it might almost be like how some days are very stern and some are more lenient,
Yes,
maybe.
yes, and there was, we're gonna get into it as we go further into Leviticus, there's annual sacrifices that people make and
Okay, right.
that you have to do, the men are at least, the heads of the family is supposed to be there 3 times a year. So there's at least 3 times a year you bring sacrifices, and those are required. And so what about all the others? How many times? I'm really glad that we have 1 John 9.
Cleanses from all.
He cleanses us from, and all we have to do is go, I did it again.
How far away did people live to need to go do this?
Yeah, that was the problem. While they're in
Because
the
that's the
wilderness,
only place they can go, right?
yes,
To do sacrifice.
while they're in the wilderness, they are somewhere around here. They look pretty close in this picture, but like I said, there's 2 million of them, so there's a ways.
Right.
out there, and I don't know how crowded the tents are, and I don't know how many people are in each tent, all that. Once they get into the land, the only place is Jerusalem. So if you're living up at the northern part of the land, you got a 3 or 4 day journey to get to the temple, which is one of the reasons why when the nation split, Jeroboam, who took over the northern kingdom, set up 2 places, one at the top of the northern kingdom and one at the bottom of the northern kingdom, so that his people would be closer. Unfortunately, what he set up was 2 more golden calves.
Because we never get it.
We never get it, yeah. And if you read through, as you read through the Old Testament and you wonder why God is so tough on them, well, they are out building their Baals and their Asherim and they're worshiping on the. Remember I told you they couldn't kill an animal out in the field and then take it in. Well, that's because they set up altars all over the place out in the field, and they were worshiping out in the fields all the time. And every time there's a hill, a high place, that becomes a idol and a worship, and it's on and on and on and on. And all I can think of is how incredibly patient God is that the nation even exists to this day. And all this stuff about God is so mean in the Old Testament, I go, are you kidding? Have you read it? You know?
Chance after chance.
It just seems like the opposite to me. But
That's because they don't understand the expectation he has for drawing unto him, being holy.
no,
And everybody needs to do that.
they also don't understand that Israel signed the contract. They actually, if you go through it, they signed that contract. I can think of 5 times where they said, yes, we will do it. Yes, we will do it. When Moses dies, they said, yes, we will do it. When Joshua takes over, they say, yes, we will do it. When Hezekiah is king, yes, we will do it. When Josiah is king, yes, we will do it. We will keep this contract. Josiah is all of 50 years before the Babylonians come in and take over. Not even that long. Yeah. So they're constantly renewing their contract with God. And he constantly describes them as an adulterous wife who's going after the other gods. And you wonder, you know? But at the same time, if God can be that merciful and that patient with them, even if he has to discipline them, he will do the same for me. Even if I have to be disciplined, he will do the same for me. And I'm just so grateful for that. He's not going to dump me out and say, you know what, I adopted you, now I'm unadopting you. Boom! That's not going to happen. I deserve that, but yeah, good question. Anything else?
It's all Eve's fault.
Actually, where the fault lies, they blamed it on Adam.
Yeah.
Because she was deceived and he was not, and he was the leader and the head. And his decision carried the weight. That's why it says in Adam all die. And not in Eve all day. And I have to say, I am so grateful for being born female, being created female, because that does not put me at the top of everything with all the responsibility and headship. I'm, very grateful to be not having all the power. Don't want that. Yeah. Or the responsibility of it all. Well, since I have a tiny bit, I thought, let me tell you the story of how the glory comes and goes, okay? So the glory moves in to the tabernacle on the day Moses sets it up. And then right then, that's right where we're at right now, we're right like within a week of that, right, okay? And the glory moves in. And it's going to stay there until Eli is high priest. And when his sons, Hophni and Phinehas, who, by the way, were far worse than these two guys, decide that they're going to take the Ark of the Covenant into battle. How they got in there without dying, I don't know. That's my question. I have so many questions. How they got in there without dying and get the Ark of the Covenant to carry it into battle, I don't know. But
Yeah.
they are going to die within a day or two because that battle is lost with the Ark of the Covenant and the glory leaves. Okay, and the Philistines take the ark, and it's a really cool story in there. The glory is already gone. They put that ark in front of Dagon, their fish idol. And they wake up in the morning and Dagon has fallen over and bowing down to the ark. It's just
And then
awesome.
Indiana Jones comes in and
It is so much like that. So they stand him up. They go, oh my goodness, it's just some weird thing happened. So they stand him up. And next day he's down, and then they decide they got to get rid of this ark. So they get rid of it, and it comes back, and it stays in various places around Jerusalem. And when David is king, the tabernacle is not set up completely. He doesn't have a place to go, and he's got places to go, but it's not an official thing yet. So all those things about when he talks about I want to be in the house of the Lord, this is all very real spiritual. Have you read those Psalms and things where he talks about that? Okay, that's really cool. Anyway, when Solomon builds the temple, the glory moves in again, just like it did with the tabernacle, and then sets the sacrifices on the altar on fire, and it's all there really again, okay? And it stays there all through the mess of all the other idols all over until we get to Nebuchadnezzar coming in and conquering Jerusalem. And then the glory, this is described in Ezekiel, it's so cool. The glory goes, it's like God going, I have to leave. I don't want to leave. So he lifts the glory up and sits above it for a while. And then he moves to the door and stands there for a while. And he goes out of the temple and stands at the gate of Jerusalem for a while. It's like this incredible sadness. And then he leaves. Okay? When Zerubbabel and Zechariah and Haggai rebuild Jerusalem, and they rebuild the temple. This is 400 BC now, approximately. The glory never moves back in. So during the time when Herod's temple was there and Jesus was there, the glory was not in the thing, because it says that when Jesus was the embodiment of the glory. So you go, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And you jump down to verse 14. This is John 1:14. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. The word dwelt is the word for tabernacle. So, the picture is so cool. It's the word for tabernacle. And we beheld his glory. He is the glory of that. So to me, when I think of the Shekinah glory and all these pictures, I think of God the Son personally being there. And of course, when he was risen, the glory goes to heaven and it will come back again when he returns.
So does the Feast of Tabernacles represent the glory in those tabernacles? Like when you guys went, it was during the time of tabernacles.
Feast of Tabernacles represents something different. It represents these tabernacles.
Oh, when they were out in the desert, okay.
It is representing of all their little tents
For 40
and where they
years.
had to live for 40 years. And that's what it represents. Yeah. There's more to it than that, but that's basically it. Any more questions? Anything you want? Did I cover it all right? I don't know.
Are you gonna use